Hi, good afternoon. I want to share this afternoon a very fun project. At least I think it's fun, which is called XFormsUnit. And you see that I have done a last-minute change to make it HTML friendly. I hope it won't break the demonstration. So XFormsUnit is a test framework for testing them all being all the different XForms implementations. So to completely break any suspense, here is the agenda of my talk. I will start with a simple, short demo. Then we will see the motivation behind the project. We will see then that there is still a lot of things to do, and we will have a very short conclusion. So the demo first. XFormsUnit is an XForm application. It has been developed with the Orbeon framework, so I am using all the different features of Orbeon for the tool itself. And it's a typical form builder, form runner application for those of you who know the look and feel of this application. So here we have 4 different test suites that have been developed with this tool. And I will show you this one, the 4th one, which is called Hello World. So here again, this is an application that has been developed with Orbeon Form Builder. So again, it's an almost typical form builder application, except for the toolbox here, which was a little bit tricky. It's divided into 3 different sections. Here you have a section about the form, a section about the suite, and a section about the result. So let's have a look at the different sections. The first one about the form here allows you to select the target implementation. Currently, the product supports 3 different target implementations, which are Orbeon Form, the implementation in which the tool itself is written, but it also supports XSLT forms and better form. And in this first section, you define the form you want to test here. And with this toolbox here, you can download the form if you like. So let's download the form. So the form itself here has been downloaded. I can have a look at its source code, okay, which is here. And you see that this is a typical XForms hello world for XForms. So a very simple XForms. I will go briefly over it for those of you who do not know XForm at all. So XForm is an MVC paradigm. So there is a model here. It's a model of the form. And simple model, I have an instance. The instance is where the information are stored. And this instance, I have some bind. I have a bind here. And the bind say that the value of this node, the node greeting, is a concatenation of the string hello, the person given name, and the string we hope you like XForm. Then you have here the body of the HTML document, which is the view of the form. And there is what we call a control in XForm, this XForm input, which allow people to enter their first name. And then there is the output, which is making a different reference to the greeting element. So very, very simple XForm. Okay, let's close that. In this first section, we are able to run the form itself. So we can run the form with Orbeon. Okay, and here is a form run by Orbeon. So you see that if I type my name here, the value of the greeting is getting updated, so the form is working. And what's interesting with this tool is that you can run the same form in XSLT forms. This is the same form run with XSLT form, working again. And you can run the form again with better form. So again, this is a form run by better form. So maybe a word of explanation. Orbeon Form itself is running in the web application. To run the form in XSLT form, which is a pure client application implementation of XForm, the XSLT forms transformation library is served by Orbeon, so it's still handled by the Orbeon web application. And to run in better form, it's run on another web application where better form is installed on the same server. So nothing very spectacular here, but the fact that I am able to run the same form in the different implementation is what enabled the other features. That's why I have insisted a little bit on this. Then you have the definition of the test suite itself, which is using a vocabulary that has been defined exactly for this purpose. So you see here that I have two elements in this test suite. The first one is a set value. The set value is at the level of the controller, so the name of the element is prefixed by controller to make it visible. And here, the syntax is borrowed to XForm. I want to set the value of the person given name with the string Eric. And I give a title to the action also for documentation purposes. And then I have a test. So this test is done at the level of the model of the form, and I am doing an assertion. I assert that two values will be equals. These values are the actual value here, which is the greeting element in the instance, and the expected value is, hello, Eric, we hope you like XForm. And there is an error message in case something goes wrong. And again, as you may expect, it's possible to run the test suite with or beyond. And it's possible to run it also, of course, with XForms. Here. And with better form, yeah. Okay. So what's happening here when I define a test suite is I wanted to do something which is as native as possible. So the test suite is translated into XForms elements, which are embedded in the form itself. So in the resulting form that you have here, you have at the same time the original form and new elements. These new elements perform the test, store the test result in another instance, and display the result of the test here. So basically, this is just a definition of the test result, and it's possible to run it in the form itself. So with this user interface, it's possible, of course, to add new tests, things like that. So, and you can also, if you want, edit the source of the test suite like this. Okay. So let's remove that. Okay. You have some other option here, but I will not take too much time on this. And then, when you have developed your test suite, you are happy with it, you will continue to make maybe some modification on the form itself, and to test regression, you will be interested in the result only. So this is the last section. The last section is about gathering the results. And you can run the result with or beyond like this. You can run the result with XForms, and you can run the result with better form. Okay. So the difference between this section and the previous one is that here, in fact, we are interested only on the result. We don't want to see the form. So the form is run, of course, in the target implementation, but the results are included here in the tool itself. And it's possible also here to download the test results. So, okay. So the test results are, in fact, the suite definition, which is annotated with the result of the test. So you see here that I have a first instance of the suite. I have some runtime information that have been gathered here. And here I have, so for instance, in the assert equal here, I have also some other information, such as the expected value was the one which was entered in the form itself. But I also have here the actual value. Of course, my test is passing and both values are equals, but it could be interesting to know the actual value if it was different from the expected one. Okay. In the runtime, I am doing some sniffing, for instance, to detect which version of XPath is used. So I can say that here, Orbeon is using XPath2. And after that, I have the result for the same test suite run against XFormsUnit. You see, for instance, that XFormsUnit is an XSLT form, which is using XPath1. And you have the same test result for better form here, which is running XPath2. But you see, for instance, and I will come back on this, that here I am using a standard XForms function to get the current date and time, and it's not working with better form. So I think that's all for the moment. Okay, so after this very, very short presentation, do we really need that kind of tool? So is it just a useless new invention? Like, I tend to invent a lot of things, but most of them seem to be rather useless. So I want to answer this question. And to answer the question, I will ask another question, which is, how do we test XForms right now, today? Because, of course, people are using XForms, and they're not waited for XFormsUnit to test this XForm. Well, I have customers who have very big, huge XForms, which very complex XPath expression, and it's very needed to test these kind of things. And in fact, the answer is that most of the time, XForms is tested with software testing framework, which are not generic to any web application. In other words, most XForm applications are tested with tools such as Selenium. I have nothing against Selenium, but the fact is that with Selenium, you don't test the form itself, you test the result of the appearance of the form. And most of the XForm implementation are either client-side using JavaScript, or they're compiling server-side the XForms into HTML and JavaScript. And to be able to test the result of the form using Selenium, you need to understand exactly how an XForm element is transformed into an HTML element. And if you want to test a value, you need to know exactly where you can find this value in the XForms, in the generated HTML. And sometimes the value is just not there. If I may have in my model, I may have nodes that are not relevant, or that are not visible on the HTML document, and then I am in trouble to test them. So that's what I mean when I say that Selenium can only test the effect of the form, not the form itself. So that's the first issue with using Selenium for this kind of things. Of course, on the other hand, the very big benefit of Selenium is that with it you can test exactly what the end user is seeing. The other thing with Selenium is it's not the same level of abstraction than the XForm itself. So it's a little bit like testing a C program with test suite for assembly languages. I mean, you don't test again. You do not have the same level of abstraction. And that's the reason why I wanted to develop this XFormsUnit, which is about testing XForm in, with, and by XForm. So it's really, the goal of this tool is to be really a native XForm implementation of test unit framework. But still, when I say so, you may wonder why I had to develop this, what I have called here the XForm unique markup language. My point is that it's really an implementation detail. This form definition is compiled into standard XForm elements, which are added in the form itself. So another option could have been to say to the user of XFormsUnit to just add the tests themselves in the form. I just find that it's much easier to define the test suite with this language and to transform this into XForm terms and concepts. So in other words, this language is to XForm what schematron is to XML, just a way to simplify the expression of the test suite. Okay. So I hope that now you like the tool and you want to use it. But the bad news is that there is still a lot to build. In fact, what I've presented here is more a proof of concept than a real tool. And among these things, there are different categories of things to do. The first one is things which are missing but easy to do. And they are not there just because I have not taken the time to implement them. For instance, the current version doesn't support forms with multiple models. It's possible with XForms for complex forms to include several models into a single form. Right now, I am not supporting that. We need, obviously, other actions than just set value. It's very easy to support all the actions that are defined by the XForm recommendation, because, as I said, these actions are implemented by adding elements in the original XForm. So it's very easy to add new actions. And we also need probably other assertions than assert equal. So all these things are, well, are not there, but they would be easy to add. Then we have things which are a little bit more tricky. And one of them is, one of the things I have in mind with this tool is server testing automation, being able to test these forms server-side without requiring any browser interaction. And this is needed if you want to add this tool in frameworks such as Jenkins or Travis or any continuous integration testing tool. And, well, no, maybe I won't go into the details to the point to showing the network traces, but I want to show you a very simple form here. This one, so I will download it again. Want to see the source of the form. I don't know why he's adding the new window. Okay. So this is a very simple form. You see that there is a model here. Model has just an instance with the information which is in it is not very meaningful for what I want to show. And XForm ready is the event that is triggered when the form is loaded. And on XForm ready, I want to send a submission. So submission is defined here. I just send the content of the instance to a web service here, which is called echo. I post the value of the instance, and the web service will return to the instance. And here, with this attribute replace equal all, I will replace the content of the form on my browser by the XML document. So it's very, very simple. It's not very useful, except that it's exactly what XFormsUnit is doing when you do a test and you want to display the result. Of course, here, the action that will take place before the submission are more complex because these actions will execute all the tests that have been submitted in the test suite, and it is the test result that will be submitted to the server. But basically, the principle used by XFormsUnit is to do action on this XForm ready event and send the result of this action to the server. So it's a good simulation, very simple simulation of what I am doing in XFormUnit. Let's close this one as well. And you see that when I run that with or beyond, it will go here. I get my instance back. So it's exactly what was expected. I could show you the network trace in that case, but the very interesting things to note is that beyond the XForm implementation is very optimized. And in that case, it's optimized to the point that everything which is done on the XForm ready event is done server-side. And in that case, this XML document will be returned without any browser interaction. I don't need a browser to run that with Orbeon, which means that with Orbeon, I don't need a browser to run my test suite. So this is a very big benefit of using Orbeon in that case. of course, it's impossible with XSLT-forms, which is a pure client-side implementation of XForms. So things we still be working here with. What is this? Yep. I want to run it with. Okay. Oh, I probably have not closed this. I will close a few more of them. Do you have others? Okay. I have troubles with the browser, which is not opening the good windows. Okay, oh yeah, okay. I know what's happening. It's returning the XML document, so but no. Yeah. It was working this morning when I have tried it, of course. Let's just do a last test. So this is the echo. And I want to run the form with XSLT form. What do I have here? Okay, so I should have the XML document. Okay. Okay, sorry for that. So let's assume that we have the XML document here. So we will have the same result than with Arbion, but the difference is that to execute this, we need to run a browser and to do an action between the browser and the server. And the last thing I want to show is we can do that also using Betterform, of course. And here we get using Betterform. In fact, this is a bug in Betterform. I've submitted to the Betterform mailing list, but I've never got any answer yet. Anyway, from what I have seen, I have studied a little bit the exchange between the client and the server and Betterform. It looks like Betterforms is executing the XFormReady action only after the first interaction between the client and the server. So that means that even if Betterform is a server application, we'll still need to have a browser to execute the test suite. Okay, so let's back to. Yeah. So again, this server-side execution is more tricky. In other words, well, I have also implemented a way to do it, but it requires to run browser server-side using a framework. It's a little bit more complicated. Then there are things which are still a little bit more tricky. For instance, one of them is to implement the asset equal with a standardized form. The asset equal for the view. The difference I make between an asset equal on the model and the asset equal on the view is that on the model I am setting a value in the instance. In the view I want to test other things such as the availability of a control. I want to be able to check if a control is visible or not, but at the level of XForms again, I don't want to use Selenium to do that. I want to test if a control is relevant, if it's mandatory, things like that. So, and it looks like, well, I have been able to implement some of this using standard XForms, but it's not working in all the cases. And from the exchanges I have had with different mailing lists, it looks like it's not possible with the current definition of the XForm event handling. So it's a question that are being currently handled by the XForm working group. But this is more tricky because it currently, to do this kind of things, it requires to use different extensions, and these extensions are not portable between different implementations. And the thing which has really been a nightmare, even to do what I have achieved so far, is the interoperability between implementation. And this lack of interoperability, I would say, we can classify into two different things. The first one is the need of extension to do anything very serious with XForms right now. You need to use extension. You are very limited by the language itself. And this implementation, of course, these extensions, of course, are different on different implementation, which means that you have to write different version of the XForms depending on the implementation you target. And so, well, it is almost inevitable, I would say, with any language. If you want to have extension, it's very difficult to provide interoperability between these extensions. The second issue we have, and I had absolutely not anticipated that, is that even with very standard XForm feature, like you've seen the error we got with Betterform, the fact that I want to submit something in an XForm-ready event, it's not working with Betterform. And there are a lot of these very small things, which are very basic XForm things, which just doesn't work with one of the three implementations. And it's really a nightmare when you want to develop something interoperable between different XForm implementations. So I would even say that it's worse than the browser wars that has been mentioned before. And the reason why the situation is worse with XForm than with browsers is that what I would call the collateral damages from the browser wars are very visible. When there is lack of interoperability between different browsers, it's every web designer, because every web designer will have an issue with this lack of interoperability. In the case of XForms, on the contrary, the damage are much less visible because we tend to have a different set of communities. In fact, we now have developers who are developing XForm for Betterform, developers who are developing XForm for XForms, and those who are developing XForm for or beyond. And because most of the XForm development are done with only one implementation in mind, it's not really a big issue that there are some bugs, people find workaround. There are some extension functions, people use them. And if it's not available, if it doesn't work the same way in another implementation, it's really not a problem. And I think we are now in a situation that in which, instead of having a standard, we have what linguists call a dialect continuum. I find it a very interesting concept, very fascinating. The idea is that in France, but it was the case in a lot of different countries, we had a situation where each one was able to understand his neighbor, but if you took someone here from Brittany, he was not able to understand someone here from Belgium, because there are some changes between the different parts of the land, and people were able to more or less understand their neighbors, but not people living far away. And I think we are really in that kind of situation with this form. And the other thing which I find surprising is that nobody seems to care, in fact, about that. So maybe it's not a problem, except for me, who wants to do this kind of interoperable products. So now my conclusion is that if you find this project useful, I need your help. I need some feedback from anyone. If some of you are interested in participating, it would be helpful to accept code. It's an open source project or sponsorship to allow me to spend more time on the project. But I would also need a lot of reactivity from XForm implementer, especially in the respect of standards. Again, and I understand that this XForm implementation are done by small tools. Okay, and I can understand that people prefer to make things that work rather than make things that are compliant to standards. But I think it should change. Here's the last slide. Welcome.
And we have time for probably one short question. Yeah, Michael.
Thank you very much. Looks like wonderful work, extremely useful for those of us that use XForms. One question, how much work is it or would it be to integrate a new XForms engine into the framework that you showed? Can you quantify that at all?
Well, it really depends if the number of incompatibility we would find compared to other implementation. It can be very, otherwise it would be very easy to do so.
No more questions? Okay, thank you very much, Sharik.